All right, welcome back, everyone. We're diving into something I bet's been bugging a lot of you. How did Donald Trump get back in the White House?
It's a big question, yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And we're going to use this CBS News piece to help figure it out. It came out right after the election.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it says 3 things really helped Trump out. The economy being how it is, his Meiji folks sticking by him, and, well, people thinking the Democrats are kind of out of touch.
Those all sound like they make sense, but I bet there's more to it than that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of more to it, CBS says inflation was, the biggest worry for voters this whole time.
I could believe that.
It wasn't just, an idea either. People were feeling it every time they bought something.
Right, and that hits people differently depending on where they live and stuff. CBS actually talked to this diner owner in Pennsylvania, Roz Werkheiser.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, she was having a hard time keeping her business going because, food prices were up, people weren't eating out as much.
Makes sense.
And she was even hoping, get this, that maybe Trump's policies would somehow make her credit card interest rates go down. That's how bad it was.
Wow. When you hear a story like that, it really hits home. Makes you wonder if maybe when people are worried about money, they start listening to different ideas.
You're right. Like maybe they start thinking the old ways were better or someone's got it out for them.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of leads into that second thing CBS talked about, the whole Maggier-based thing. Apparently, almost half of all Republicans say they're part of that.
That's a lot.
It is. And get this. CBS says that whole group just believes Trump when he says the 2020 election was rigged and everyone's out to get him, even with, no proof. Almost 2/3 of Republicans think the 2020 election was fake. It's kind of scary, right? How strong those beliefs are.
Yeah, it's like this whole us versus them thing. You see it in other countries, too. They don't trust regular news, don't trust the government, just listen to stuff that already agrees with them.
It's like we're living in 2 different worlds. And speaking of being out of touch, CBS talked about that, too. Remember Susan Wild, that congresswoman from Pennsylvania who lost?
Yeah, I remember her.
Well, she thinks the Democrats are too focused on what she called lofty social issues. Like they forgot about the regular stuff people worry about.
I get what she means. But those lofty things matter to people's lives, Healthcare, housing, schools, that's all social justice stuff, too.
You're right. I guess maybe Democrats have got to do a better job of showing how those things are connected.
Exactly. Like it's not one or the other. And, you got to give the Republicans credit. They've done a good job of making people scared of those social changes, saying it'll hurt them financially. That works when times are tough.
It's tricky, and it makes me think of what CBS found about, abortion rights. Democrats talked about it a lot, but it didn't really get them votes.
Yeah, they said in places where abortion was on the ballot, Vice President Harris got fewer votes than the actual issue itself.
Wild, right.
That's really something. It's almost like people were saying, we agree with this idea, but we don't trust you guys to do it right.
Yeah, exactly. Like a trust issue.
Right. Makes you think about how people see politicians, who they believe is real, all that.
It's fascinating, honestly. There's so much going on here. But we're just getting started, folks.
Feels like we're looking at this, cracked political map. All these anxieties, these changes, and just, no one trusting anyone.
And trying to figure out how to put the pieces back together, right? The bad economy, all the Maggier folks holding strong, and Democrats not really getting through to, well, a lot of voters. It's recipe for a Trump comeback, I guess.
It's like all these different things just lined up perfectly, didn't they? Not just one issue or one group of people, but they all fed off each other.
Like dominoes, yeah. It makes me think, what happens now, for politics in general?
Well, if this is how things are going, both parties might start focusing more on those money worries,
Maybe, but probably in totally different ways.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
What about those Maggier folks? Will they stick with Trump, even if he doesn't do what he said he would?
That's hard to say, really. But that feeling they have, the system's rigged and their culture's fading, that stuff isn't going away. Whether Trump's around or not, that's still going to be part of politics.
So what can the Democrats do? Can they connect with the people who feel left behind? Or are we just going to get more divided?
Man, that's the big question. They need to figure out how to talk about those everyday money worries without, losing the people who care about social stuff. It's tough. For sure.
It is. And it makes me wonder if these old party labels even matter anymore. Are we going to see new groups forming based on specific issues?
Could be. We already see people saying they're independent, not with either party. Maybe it'll be more fluid, less predictable, for sure. Smaller groups deciding things.
Kind of exciting, kind of scary, right? This election messed up all the predictions. It's like a whole new ballgame.
Yeah, totally. Things have changed for good. Who knows how it'll all play out? But one thing's for sure, we got to pay attention to what this election showed us,
For our listeners, what's the one thing they should take away from all of this?
Stay involved, stay informed, and think for yourself. Don't just believe everything you hear from politicians, the news, even your friends. Ask questions. Find different viewpoints. Make up your own mind.
Great advice. And, CBS gave us good info, but it's just one way of looking at things, right?
Yeah, got to read different stuff, even things you don't agree with. That's how you get the whole picture.
Makes sense. This whole thing got me thinking about something a friend said, about how some people feel all this equality stuff has gone too far. What does too far even mean, Who gets to decide that?
That's deep, man. And it shows how hard these social issues are. What's good for one person might feel like too much to another. It's all about talking to each other, even when it's hard.
Trying to get along in this crazy world, but we don't even know the rules yet.
Yeah. Reminds me of this thing I read about empathy in politics, Like, we got to stop just arguing about rules and try to see where the other person's coming from.
Like putting yourself in their shoes, right? Yeah. And realizing that even if you live close by, their life could be totally different.
Totally. Got to be humble, admit you don't know everything. Your view's just one little piece of the puzzle.
It's humbling, but also hopeful in a way. If we can see each other as like real people with different stories, maybe we can get past all this division.
I'm with you on that. It's not about pretending everyone's the same, but finding ways to respect those differences and work together.
Yeah, finding that common ground. Maybe that's where the hope is in all this mess. This election was like a slap in the face, reminding us democracy's not a given. Got to work for it, protect it.
Absolutely. It's on all of us to get involved, listen closely, and try to build a society where everyone feels like they belong.
It's funny, we keep talking about these divides, but how do we, fix them? That whole thing about too far, it made me think about the news, Like, CBS gave us these facts, but did they really dig into why some folks feel that way? Did they just say it's a backlash? Or did they try to understand it?
Yeah, good point. News can be kind of surface level, right? Like, this group thinks that, but they don't always tell you why. What happened to these people? How'd they end up thinking this way?
Exactly. If we just focus on who voted for who and what the polls say, we miss the big question, the why. And if we don't get that, how can we even start fixing things?
You can't. It's like, trying to bake a cake without a recipe. Got to understand the ingredients, the individual stories, what makes people tick, why they vote the way they do.
And that's why these deep dives are so important, I think. It's not just about the election. It's about making us think about the bigger picture, What's going on in our country, what stories we believe, and what we can do about it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This election was a wake-up call, for sure, reminding us to pay attention, listen to each other, and try to build a better society, one where everyone feels welcome.
So as we wrap this up, here's what I want our listeners to remember. Don't just take the headlines at face value. Ask questions, find different opinions, and most importantly, talk to each other, even when you disagree. That's how we make progress.
Well said. We're all in this together, folks, and the future depends on us trying to understand each other, working towards a fairer world for everyone.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.